record this. If you would like a copy of the recording, please send Elizabeth McFall an email and just say, please send me a link to download the recording. If you'd like to have it for your reference or to show it to other folks in your organization. So today we're going to be talking about customers. We're going to be talking about, we are going to talk about vendors. We're going to be talking about projects though, and then vendors. And so let's start. As you can see today, based on what we discussed the other day about the general user interface here to CINX, this is your landing page. In my case, this is my simple account. I have one that I've been using for a couple years now that's very engaged and flushed out. We don't have many items here in our catalog. We only have 2 projects. It's just myself. But it's always good to use something that is more simple looking than it is more complex looking, I found. So I'm using a simple account right now, my account. The contracting company is called KSV Contracting. Now we're on the landing page. This is the dashboard, right? So as I explained the other day, that with using your right mouse button, you can always open up another tab. So it makes it much easier to move from where your current position is dashboard to your customer page. Or, as I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about projects, so why not open that as well? Here's our project page right here. Customers, back to the dashboard. And we're also going to be talking about vendors. So I'll open, whoops, quick to do that. I'm going to open up vendors with my right mouse button. And so we'll now have easy access to go between our dashboard, our customers, our projects, and our vendors, okay? So back to the first most important part here is this concept of a customer. So data is basically managed in CINX around a framework, and that framework starts at the highest level. And think about it just like your directory, your folder directory of your computer. At the highest level, you've got My Documents. So think of My Documents being similar to your customers. So here we have my one customer, Emerson Construction Company. It is a customer. There's 2 active projects there. And all of these 3 items, customers, projects, and vendors, are built around using a wizard. So I wanted to go back to the dashboard here, show you also that my recent customers can be also accessed not only by going through here, but you can also find it on your dashboard. So let's just create a new customer just to show you how you would go about it. And as I mentioned before, this is basically the framework by which data can be stored. I referenced a couple days ago in the basics that you don't have to use this. This functionality in CINX. It's there only if it makes sense to you, only if it's going to be of value and bring efficiencies to how you do your project, your construction, and how you share and exchange data between the different departments in your organization. Now, one last thing, I should have said this at the very beginning. If you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me. By just sticking into your phone and say, hey Dave, wait a second, what do you mean by this? Or can you go explain this a little bit more? Or if you're shy, feel free to type it into the chat box. I should mention that I don't always look at the chat box, but I will occasionally look over. And I'm trying to do this all within the 20 minutes that we have saved away for this workshop. So that's why I go so fast. So let's go ahead and start the process so you can see how easy the process can be. So assuming that you're starting from scratch, you don't have any recent customers, you can also create a customer directly from your quick links. But we'll just do a new customer here. First thing it's going to check with me after I select it. And by the way, as you can see, I just used my left mouse button and I lost that reference to the dashboard here. So I did that accidentally. So I'm just going to start that dashboard up again so I can always come back to that dashboard. All right, so the first thing it's going to do is ask me for a customer name. And this is so that we don't have any duplicates in the database for your customers. So I'm going to create a University of New Hampshire. And let's go ahead and type that in here. University of New Hampshire as a customer name. It's going to search for that. Well, it's not going to find it because I know I only have one customer here, and it is searching. Now it's listing all the different other customers that might have been out there in a database, but never mind that. We know that it's not a customer, so I'm going to create a customer, a new customer here, and I'm going to.
There's other vendors or customers in there that could be a member of your base. You just pick that up automatically.
They could be a existing customer inside the database, and all we would pull from it wouldn't pull from any information from another contractor or from anybody else. But what it would do is if there is a existing data set about that, including addresses, etc., it would pull that in. But it wouldn't take, for example, as I'm filling this out, anything that's unique to my company about this customer, it wouldn't pull that in. It's only if that customer has a shared public view data about them.
Gotcha.
Right, so universities, now this is critical here to point out that in any of these wizards, you have to fill in the fields that reference that red asterisk there. As you can see, there's no other red asterisk, so I can go past this wizard very quickly, by just filling in those that are required. The required fields are the things that link back and make all this relational database capability work. So I get through the first one. It does require an address, United States here. I'm just going to put one University Drive as the address. It's going to be Durham, New Hampshire, and so postal code. I'm not sure about this, so I'm just making that up. And I would check this if the mailing address is different. Now, I can always come back and fill in all this data at another time. And keep that in mind when you're filling out your wizard. In fact, here we are at the third step, contact information. There's no red asterisk, so I can come back and fill that in about that particular customer. Now, staff contact, I'm going to add a contact just because it's going to make it useful. I'm going to call it Dave Emerson, and the role email is Emerson at University of New Hampshire and role planner. All right, and I'm going to save that. Okay, so then the next step, account reps, it's already associating me because I'm plugging this in, and I'm going to submit it. Now I have a customer that's been created. And as you can see here, this customer, this is going to highlight the next subfolders, if you'd like, because I gave you the analogy that this is very much like a folder structure. At the highest level, it's my documents. Here in CINC, at the highest level, it's customer. So you've got my customer, University of New Hampshire. Now this customer, of course, as you would imagine, would have multiple buildings. So as projects come up and I begin to store data about this customer and their buildings, we can keep it very well articulated so that we can always go back and find information about previous projects associated with previous building things. So we have buildings and then we have projects. Now I could get to, hang on a second, should have turned off my cell phone. By the way, I just want to mention that New Hampshire, of course, has got the onslaught of every polling company in America. I'm getting at least a dozen calls every day from people polling me about who I'm going to vote for. And I just am tired of that. But we have 20 events going on any one day for presidential folks. It's unbelievable what's going on in the state here. More than I've ever seen before in any presidential election. So anyway, back to our workshop because we've got 10 more minutes to go. So as we've got that framework understood, customer, buildings, projects, we're going to go to projects. I'm going to create a project. By hitting new project, we're going to get into the same sort of thing, a wizard. So we're going to name that project let's call it, a good name here, meeting hall. And that's the only required field here is that asterisk. So we've named it. It's associating meeting hall with that customer. There it is, so I don't have to do anything else. That's the only asterisk there. Building or structure. Now, I don't have a building associated with it, so I'm going to create a new one. So it'll be really easy here. I'm going to name it it'll be Student Center. So it may be in addition to it. Address is all the same. Now we have a student center. There's your link for your, and now we can associate project dates associated to it. Dates and define those. We have nothing else we want to add to it though for the sake of this. So the project has been created. So now we have a blank project, and I'm going to go right away, considering the time. We have 7 minutes to go. I'm going to tie in a couple things here. I'm going to show you basically some of the fluidity or the process flow from an estimating perspective of how you would go about taking a blank project that has no data in it, and we're going to bring data into it. So I'm going to import a bill of material. And I'm going to go into my bill of materials, and here are my bill of materials here. I'm going to use any of these. All of these all come from different modeling tools or from different estimating tools. I'm going to pick one. Let's see, where's a good one that I actually remember? Let's use, I had one Curlin one right here. Let's use this one. It's a good size one. It's an auto bid output. Pretty much every estimating tool that has HPH item codes can be imported into CINX. This was an estimate that an estimator completed and was awarded the project. And so that basically starts that linear, repeatable process flow in my company that whenever we are awarded a project, the first thing the estimator does is take all of that estimate data, all right, and brings it into a blank templated project so that this data can be made available and shared with other people downstream from the estimator. And who might that be? It might be a project manager. It might be part of that turnover or handover meeting that takes place whenever a project begins inside a construction firm, where data is not only exchanged, but a number of decisions and discussions are started about it. So as you can see here, it's still blank, and the only reason it's blank is because the last time I was here basically is to import that bill of material. All I need to do now to populate this page is to refresh it. It is a browser, and so now the request was made of that server where all this data is saved, the CINX server, and says, okay, give me populate my results with that estimate that was brought in. I'm going to expand this thing called work breakdowns, and because I think this is a really valuable part of understanding the capabilities of this tool. A lot of people use work breakdowns not realizing it's called a work breakdowns or work breakdown structure, but that's the term that estimating companies use as they build out their tools. And basically a work breakdown is how an estimating tool allows, and certainly a CAD tool, allows a professional to organize, categorize that project or the takeoff. So as you can see here, so obviously I didn't know this, we only have one floor here. Let's see if we've got multiple anything. All right, we've got multiple systems. Okay, so this gives you an idea of how this estimator organized their estimate by naming, creating this set of 5 different systems that all of the elements, the mechanical elements that made up that estimate, fall into. Now, if you had different floors, you've got the basement. If you have floor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of course, you'd have that as a filter that could be selected. The point being is that you could come into this as a project manager or as part of that turnover meeting and say, let's take a look at all the chilled water mechanical elements associated with this. In this case, there were 100 items per page. There were 5 pages. There's now what we've defined is that there's a heck of a lot of chilled water items. There's over approximately 300 chilled water items, so I picked the largest. So let's take that out. Let's pick a smaller one. Let's look at hot water. I hope you notice here I'm going to wait until that's been fetched properly here. I want to pick a smaller, and we can see there's multiple pages of it, by the way. So that I saw there were 5 pages, but it's just a matter of that the server, the CINX server, was still importing data while I'm working on it. So I'm rushing it a bit because of my time, but there's obviously a lot of elements here, and so chilled water was 300, hot water was 300, and probably would find that a number of these others have quite a few different elements. Now I could use multiple filters here. As you can see here, there's a material description that's used, quite a bit of material description that's used. And so you could really filter down to, if you were looking to buy out a particular, let's say there were multiple floors, and floor 3 is being released next week, you could select floor 3 and select particular other work breakdown structures.
Well,
I see there's a question. I'll wait for it.
Yeah. On the manufacturer's list, I see there's 0 on a lot of the items. Is that something that's not being imported from your pricing program, or is that something that you're expecting us to enter as we go along?
No, typically what you'll find here is you'll also see there's not only a missing manufacturer.
There's no HPH code, right?
There's no HPH code. These are sometimes things as you would expect, welds, other items that don't necessarily have an HPH item code, but you're going to be sending it out to be quoted, right? Or that it's relevant, that was part of the estimate. We're going to take that in. If there's no HPH code, it doesn't matter. We're going to still take that data in and bring it into you. So you certainly can use it to communicate with just whoever you want to communicate and share this data with, which might be, of course, that other element that we haven't talked about, and we've hit that 20 minutes, so I'm going to go over a little bit if you don't mind. Because I do want to talk about vendors here, is that you still may want to send this basically bill, an RFQ or bill of material, however you want to call it. You want to send it to your collaborating suppliers or supply chain to get quotes, or actually create a purchase order to purchase it. So it is available for you to come back in some cases, to add, if you want to add a manufacturer in there. But, the reason there's nothing here is because we don't have it associated with an HPH code. So as you see, there's a lot, joints, for example, gases, right?
So if we enter a code in there, would it be there the next time we come around? That's what I'm saying.
If you go back in and add in, yeah, if you go in.
The manufacturer's part number and the manufacturer and give them the pricing, and then the next time we come around, it would be there.
If you are going to create, I'm going to back to that dashboard. If you're going to create a catalog, a custom catalog, representing your company's unique stuff, then yes. But right now, there is no custom catalog here for this account.
Gotcha.
So this is just using standard Harrison Publishing House data, and we don't have that associated with it in that 3 million item repository. But if you build out your custom catalog and build it out with a lot of detail, that detail will be reflected over time as you build it out. Okay? So
the import was an export from the estimating software?
Exactly. Every estimating tool that we support has the ability to export the raw data of that, whether it's QuoteSoft, Trimble, and FastPipe, etc., Autodesk, all of those software, as long as there's an HPH item code associated to an item, we can import that into CINX, and now you have a vehicle inside your construction workflow to begin that process of moving that element from initial creation, which is, of course, at that time of when you do your estimate. That's when the the data is at first introduced into your company. And in some cases, it's left there on the floor because you didn't get the job. But in cases where you did get the job, why not take advantage of all the effort the estimator did, the knowledge that they put into that estimate, and the knowledge, of course, is represented by this thing, the work breakdown structure, because this is, if you think about what an estimator brings a ton into the workflow, obviously, because without a capable estimator, you're not going to get jobs. So they bring that knowledge and that capability in, and it's represented by how they've organized and categorized that project. And it's reflected here. This changes. This is not like a standard Harrison defined set of work jobs.
But when they enter the pricing in it, would they automatically enter it into the database so you could put it into your catalog automatically, or is it something you have to manually enter each time?
Oh, no. Once, if you're gonna build out a catalog, and you're going to build out your catalog for, there's all kinds of good reasons why you do that. I'll get back to this dashboard here. If you're going to build that catalog out, right, as that catalog is being built out, you're going to do that in conjunction with and in collaboration with your supply chain. And how that is done is when you create an RFQ, so if I create an RFQ from here,
right,
and the whole thing is all about efficiencies. So this is meeting hall, RFQ, one, and I could even call it, I can't remember what we use for the, I think it was hot water, but let's just call it chilled water. I can't remember, who cares? Yeah. And I should be able to tell it, it was hot water. So,
hot water, all right.
Yeah, hot water. So here's this RFQ I create, I save it, and let's just finish this process out. It's going to save it. It takes a little bit of time because there's 300 items to it. It won't take that much time, maybe a minute. But when it's saved, it's going to redirect me to that RFQ, and that's where I'm going to identify my suppliers that I'm going to send this off to. Now, we make it really easy for you to engage your suppliers to participate, collaborate with you, because, well, first off, we've got the largest distributor in America, Ferguson, has already signed up. So all of their offices across the United States are enabled to do business with you via CINX. Okay, that's a done deal. That's enough to generate interest from your other suppliers to say, we as a company get a lot of efficiencies internally using this tool CINX. We would like to collaborate with you, Mr. Supplier. It costs you nothing to participate. Harrison Publishing will give you a free account to receive an RFQ and to provide us back a quote, and that's all we're asking you to do. It's very much similar to receiving a fax. All right, we could send you a fax, you'd respond with a quote, wouldn't you, if we sent you a fax? Well, this is the same thing, except it's going to be automated. It's going to highly benefit you, the contractor, because you're going to get back from your supply chain a completely flat, formatted quote from them.
It'd be automatically formatted what we need to put it in and put it into our system then.
Yeah, it's all going to be automated. They're going to respond if they're going to engage with you. They'll respond, and you can use a lot of the capabilities in CINX. One is this concept of quote compare. So you can actually send out to 4 or 5 different suppliers, and you can use the capability in CINX to compare all the quotes. And you know how if you send out a large quote to 4 different suppliers and you get it back and they've realigned, they've
changed it around everything else. You got to
change around everything. Well, that will not take place with this, because it's going to be aligned around the cross-referencing of both the naming of the item and the HPH code. All right. So here's the RFQ. Here's where you assign what vendors you're going to send it off to. Use this tab right here. Now, this is I haven't signed up. I haven't created any vendors yet for this account. But this is where my vendors would be. So what I'm just gonna jump off for a second, log out of this guy, log in and show you my built out. And look, I've got 151,000 items in my catalog. I'm managing 237 projects. I got 5 other people besides myself. So let's take a look at an RFQ that I made yesterday, I believe. Let's just open this up. Right click. And so here, just so you can see the vendor selection that this went out to. Well, here's a test RFQ I sent out yesterday for the University of Chicago. I believe it was yesterday. So here's my vendors. I would just check off who I want to send this to, and I submit it to them. If I want to preview that, you'll see what's sent to them. It also contains a whole bunch of data that I could associate when I need a response by, a lot of information like that. It also, if I have legal terminology that I want to append to all my RFQs, that would be appended here. So here's a preview of what it would look like, what they would receive. It doesn't contain, I can go in, I can change the quantities to 1 if I don't want them to see necessarily the quantities. If that's some sort of intellectual property that I want to protect. So here's the RFQ that went out to them. I just wanted to show you at the bottom. Here are certain legal terms, and this is for purchase orders, so that's not necessarily related. It's not a purchase, but when I added that, it wasn't. But again, that's the whole. This is the process, and within 20 minutes, and I've gone over 8 minutes here. I wanted to give you a quick sort of insight into this concept of customers and the framework, how it's organized around customers, their buildings and their projects, how you relate to vendors, and of course the project itself, and how data comes into that project. And that was this workshop, and all within 30 minutes. So went a little bit